Voting is underway in Taiwan's crucial presidential and parliamentary elections, with the dominant issue being relations with China. Voters will choose a new leader to succeed Tsai Ing-wen, the current president who's leaving the post after 2 terms in office. Her DPP party, with leading candidate Lai Ching-te, views Taiwan as an independent nation, while Beijing considers it part of the Chinese territory. The DPP's main opponent is the KMT, led by Hou Yu-ih, which wants to strengthen ties with China. DW's chief international editor, Richard Walker, joins me now from a polling station in Taipei. Richard, what are the top issues for Taiwan voters in this election cycle? Is it the typical bread and butter stuff, or is security issue number one?
Yeah, well, Michael, as you said in the introduction there, of course, relations with China and the tensions that we've seen across the Taiwan Strait in recent years are very much the predominant issue. And in that sense, this election has that in common with previous elections in Taiwan. Of course, Taiwan has lived with the threat of Chinese invasion for decades. And this question about what's the best way of dealing with China, should you take a tough line like the current government, or as the opposition calls for, should you really try to build dialogue with China, try to improve relations, that is a major dividing line within Taiwan. But this time around, you do have what you refer to there as bread and butter issues playing an unusually large role. And that is partly fueling the rise of a third party in Taiwan. There are now 2 opposition parties. There's a new third party which has come to the fore on these questions of low salaries, high rents, and the kind of economic issues, particularly facing young people. So a lot of young people supporting that party, and that makes this election particularly unpredictable. It's a 3-way race.
Surely China has made its presence known in the run-up to this election. How much pressure are we seeing from Beijing?
Yeah, well, we certainly have been seeing pressure from Beijing. It's pretty much been kind of the typical kind of pressure that we see from China, though, over the years, and that Taiwan has been very accustomed to. For instance, earlier today, the Taiwanese Defense Ministry reported that Chinese warplanes had been flying close to Taiwan, that there'd been, in recent weeks, we've seen mysterious balloons coming from China flying over the island even. There's been disinformation. There have been kind of threatening warnings coming from Chinese officials saying that the people of Taiwan have to make the correct choice, which is taken to mean vote for a party that wants to be friendly with China. But I think 2 things to add here. First of all, the simple fact that you see people streaming into these polling stations all over Taiwan is an implicit rebuke to that the people of Taiwan are used to resisting this pressure from China. And then the second thing, a Chinese senior official has been in Washington in the last couple of days, has been at talks in the White House, talking to the State Department. And that's a sign that I think the Chinese and the US are really trying to build on this summit that Joe Biden and Xi Jinping had recently in the United States to try to manage the tensions between the countries that have been really spilling out of control. So you have a sense that kind of everyone's a little bit on their best behavior at the moment, wants to avoid a crisis. Of course, something surprising can always happen. We really don't know. But so far, the signs are from the US, from China, and also from candidates here in Taiwan that they're all trying to do their best to avoid anything that could provoke some kind of crisis.
Richard, less than 20 seconds, but I do have to ask you, who is likely to win?
Yeah, that's a big question, Michael. But there's been no opinion polling for 10 days. There's a blackout before the election, but the initial polls had the governing party top for the presidency, but it's likely to be close. And it's not just who's going to come first for the presidency. It's going to be an interesting race between who's going to come second, who's going to come third. So that's going to be closely watched. Plus, likely to be a hung parliament. That's going to make life difficult for whoever becomes president.
We'll certainly be watching. That's a DW Chief International Editor Richard Walker in Taipei. Many thanks, Richard.